Hi, and welcome to the first episode of So Connected Conversations about Who We Truly Are. I am Daniela. I'm a psychotherapist and author from Germany and totally new to podcasting. In this first episode, I am talking to the wonderful Dianne Sherman. Dianne has had a profound near death experience many years ago, and since that, she is helping clients all over the world with her intuition and with her clear senses to find out who they truly are. Please keep in mind that since I'm completely new to podcasting, the first few episodes are still figuring it out with the lighting, with the microphone, with the setup in general, so please cut me some slack here. However, if you like the conversation and if you want to find out which guests are coming next, so please subscribe this channel, like this episode, comment and share it. You know how it works. And now let's get into the conversation with Dianne about awakening the power of the heart. Hello, Dianne Sherman, and welcome to So Connected. I am so pleased to have you here and to join you on a conversation about who we truly are. What do you think is our true inner nature, and how did you become aware of us being more than a body, being a soul on a journey here on earth?
Well, before I answer your very big question, I want to say thank you for having me and including me in your podcast. I'm very excited to be here with you.
I am excited to hear about all of your experiences, especially since I know you and we've had a couple of sessions together. And now I want to share with the world your really precious gifts and heart centered energies that you have given me throughout the past few months. And I hope
Oh,
you can explain a little bit to the audience how you became the person that you are and how you figured out that there is a soul in that body living and also traveling through life adventure.
well, I thought about this question and I went back in my references in my mind about when did I realize we had a soul?
Yeah.
And I think it was when I was a kid and I realized that the creatures that lived with my family, our dogs and
Hmm.
whatnot, um, that they had feelings,
Yeah.
that they were, I didn't know the term sentient beings, but the awareness of their awareness, and that they, because they were in a different form, didn't matter. They were like me, they felt like me. And so I realized there must be a soul in them. It's not just a creature that has no feelings or
Mm.
whatnot. And, I grew up in a generation where dogs were not treated necessarily
Mm.
well, that their feelings were never taken into account. But at the same time, they also did surgeries on little tiny children without anesthesia. So,
Mm.
it was a strange lack of awareness. And I think I may have had a drowning episode when I was a little kid because I've had visions of it and different reactions to other people's circumstances that have made me realize there's something in there about that for me. And I think that may have been part of when I really got clear that we have a soul, that there is more to us than what we know as ourselves. And having that connection with God. I always felt like I use the term, and it's a strange term, pious kid
Mm.
growing up. I wasn't religious, but I was pious for God or for the being Catholic, lives of the saints, the Blessed Mother. Saint Joseph was my patron saint. I was never big on Jesus. I didn't have a major connection with Jesus. I believed in Jesus, but it wasn't the focus for me. God was the focus for me.
So you grew up in a religious household?
I grew up in a pretending religious
Mm.
household. We went to church on Sunday, My sister and I were raised Catholic. My father was Catholic. He was not a practicing Catholic, but my mother decided to raise us in his religion. She was Episcopalian. So
Mm-hmm.
there were times when I would go to her church or his church, depending on what the circumstances or the holiday
They
was.
never went together?
I don't remember my father ever going to my mother's church.
Well, that's
Now,
interesting.
Episcopalian, it might, well, I don't remember. I remember him going to church on Sunday, not always.
But so you
My,
must have grown up with the notion that there is different kinds of right and wrongs about what God is and what God isn't.
I don't know that I was so aware of that as a kid until I got older.
Hmm.
Um, the Catholic speak kind of kept you locked in a mindset that this is all there is, and you
Hmm.
don't deviate from this. I remember in grammar school them talking about, you know, it was not right for me to go to my mother's church. That was against the teachings of the Catholic Church because the Catholic Church is the one true church in
Yeah,
their mind,
yeah, yeah.
right? And because of that, how dare I go elsewhere? And that was before I understood that there were other major religions in the world that had
Hmm.
ramifications. I learned later because I became friends with people who had other religions. They were Jewish or they were
Hmm.
um, um, one of the Arabic,
Hmm. Hmm.
beliefs. And it was just different, than what I had been in because mine was so structured. And so you have to follow these rules and these rules only, otherwise you're going to hell.
Hmm. And you always said that you have always been a very sensitive person.
Yes.
So sometimes I have the impression that as a sensitive person, you, well, many people who are sensitive have a very rich imaginational life. So they have these stories in their heads. They make up maybe connections between feelings and sensations that they have in everyday life. For example, when they enter a room and they can sense the feelings around that and maybe get some pictures about that. And when you have all these religious beliefs, do you think this kind of growing up or being told what you're allowed to believe and what you're not allowed to believe encouraged you or blocked you to make that connection of your inner world, of your inner true knowing? You know what I mean?
Yes. I think that what you explained, coupled with the um, dysfunction in my family, there was a lot of trauma in my family growing up. Um, it made me rely on my inner world because my outer world was untenable,
Hmm.
meaning it was not okay to be really present with it because it was too overwhelming to handle or digest or
Okay.
understand or process.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
So you retrieved into your inner world when you
I
were a
absolutely
child.
did.
Yeah.
I spent a
Okay.
lot of time as a kid going out of my body.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I learned to go out of my body. Now, was it disassociation?
Hmm.
I don't know. I don't think so because I would just go elsewhere.
Mm. Mm. I think that is a different uh, association that we have with dissociation when we are talking about trauma-based reactions. You know that I'm a psychotherapist, and everybody who doesn't know that, I'm a psychotherapist, and I'm very eager to differentiate between psychological issues, which is often a matter of the body and the brain and the mind, and spiritual experiences. So I'm very positive that there are two different ways of going out of the body. And I don't know if you can do that in retrospective to feel back into your body. If you feel pressured, I cannot be in that situation anymore. It feels too much, it feels too heavy. And then we kind of retrieve into a place that feels more bearable, or if you feel expanded, like this world here is not everything there is, and I want to be free. I want to breathe. So I'm going with my mind wherever feels more aligned with me.
I
Can
think
you,
that
yeah,
was more of it, the last,
yeah,
because
yeah.
I remember when I was in labor with my daughter, um, I remember going out of my body. You know, I I I didn't experience the heaviness of being in labor. As a matter of fact, I they never asked me to push to get her out,
Okay.
um, which was weird. And I don't remember ever pushing.
Okay. Wow. How
I
did
know,
you do that?
I had major contractions, and
Mhm.
then the assistant doctor came over and went on my
Yeah.
diaphragm and
Mhm.
pushed her out,
Oh, really?
and
Oh,
that was
wow.
it. Yeah,
That's
it
miraculous.
it was a very weird birth,
Hmm.
and nobody's ever been able to explain to me what that was about. I don't know if they had to get her out in a hurry and that's why they did that or not, but I just remember being the present and
Mm,
then, you know, sort of like being in my own bubble
mm,
is all I
mm.
can say.
So, because that's an extreme situation, being in labor, I know that. And, in experiences where we are out of the body, there is a chemical in our brain that is very often associated with that. It's called DMT. And many people in near-death experiences, in labor, in orgasms, but also in very spiritual awake moments, also when you take ayahuasca, you have like an explosion of DMT in your brain, which is actually being produced almost every night when you dream, especially when you have very lucid dreams. And sometimes that can happen during labor too, because it's something that the body needs to get through, but I've never heard someone being out of the body during labor and then just having the baby float out. That's so great. I want to have that drug as well.
I wouldn't say float out.
Okay.
They literally did that to get her out,
Okay.
but um, I was never in severe agony, trauma,
Mm,
whatever. My body just worked with me. I had wanted to
mm,
do, there was a wonderful doctor called Dr. Frederick Lavoyer, and I wanted to do his method of birthing, but
mm.
where I was in California, they weren't as well versed in it. So I was limited to what they would allow me to do. And I just remember, being in the labor room and just being in connection with spirit and working with that and my body and being relaxed and at peace with it.
Wow.
I wasn't worried. I wasn't struggling.
Hmm.
I remember there were sort of rungs on the headboard of
Hmm.
this
Hmm.
hospital
To
bed,
grab onto, yeah.
and I grabbed onto those and
Mm,
sort of lifted myself up from
mm.
time to time, and that was about all that I did, you know.
Wow.
And I heard people yelling down the hall, and I kept thinking, "What's going on there?" Because I was not having that. Now, my daughter was little; she was 6 pounds 2 ounces, or
Mm.
4 ounces, but still, it was an amazing experience.
Yeah, I've always wondered why some women have a very easy and almost peaceful birth. My two births were awful, so painful.
I'm so
So
sorry,
that's fine. The kids are good. That's
and
the
you're
main thing.
okay.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, yeah. But it's something you go through. And I think that all experiences that bring you to the border of your personal existence are actually showing you much more of who you truly are than everyday life ever could.
Yeah, I think that was the first time I really felt powerful.
Mm.
as an adult woman. I felt powerful. Yeah. And
You
that was
felt
exciting.
you felt the power of what your body as a woman could really do.
And I felt the power that I had in working with my body. I think that was
Ah,
the most
yeah.
important part, was
Mm.
being able to work with myself, not
Mm.
and being in touch with myself, you
Mm.
know, because that was long before my near death experience. And, having an awareness of me that was different. The whole labor process gave me that, because I had false labor for 6 weeks, and Braxton Hicks and all of that stuff, and it really let me know what I was made out of, as we say, the metal of who I was. And that was
Mm-hmm.
good,
Mm.
because I was
And
not near my family. I didn't have a lot of support with them. Um, and my husband, did what he knew how to do, but I did the rest. Yeah.
and do you think that experiencing pain, especially physical pain, is like a portal to become someone way stronger than we thought we ever were?
Oh, absolutely. And I know that even more now, at my age. I've had accidents and injuries, and I've had pain, and I know what it can do to you. And I've learned to make it my friend. I also, because of the work that I do, understand that the pain is a signal to us that there's some
Mm.
kind of emotionality in
Mm-hmm.
that area that's trying to be
Oh, yeah.
expressed, so
Yeah.
that we will work with it and heal
Mm.
it.
Mm.
And so I have a lot of reverence for pain, and the fact that the body is so succinct in awakening us to, you're hurting here because there's something emotionally stuck here that you need to deal with, and you're not dealing with it. And I'm going to get louder and louder until you address what's going on here, you know?
Yeah, the body speaks in symbols and quite loudly. And they say in the yogic tradition that the left side of the body is the female and receiving
Receiving.
side, and the right side is the male and the more giving side or action oriented side, called Ida and Pingala in Sanskrit in the yogic tradition. And I think it's really fascinating when you ask people on which side do you have the pain, that you can always make a correlation about that, if it's something they need to lean into more, or if it's something they need to do more or less. And I've always found that people were like, yeah, that's really my issue right now. Yeah. And I think it's so amazing that we stop listening to these obvious signs of our bodies.
Well, I think the indigenous peoples of the world still do it, as a natural way of being. I think we have to remember that that is how we're wired, to
Yeah.
pay attention to these things. Um, that, I had an accident on a Pilates machine. I fell off a Pilates machine when I had legs and arms up in the air, and I hurt my hip.
How can you
And
not?
yeah, I had nothing to grab onto. And I in researching, it's about family energies and family discourse and family traumas and whatnot. And I was having an issue with that at the moment in time. And it was a perfect reminder of, you have to work with those emotions and your feelings about those emotions.
Yeah, and the body is the slowest part and also the loudest. Like we can see it in like a spiral, the spiritual part is the essence, and then we have the mental and the emotional, and then the physical part. And
Yeah.
when the body speaks, then it's about time. I always when I have a client who's having chronic pain issues, you can always track it back to emotional matters that have happened years and years before, probably even in childhood, and sometimes even generations before their own birth. So, and that's so exciting that our body is never not functioning, but it's sometimes the slowest part that is speaking to us when we don't listen to our Yeah, I mean, emotions and also, of course, our intuition, which is most of the time not being heard in everyday life.
Well, there are a couple things about the body. It's the last vestige. We have all the different auric fields that we have to go through,
Yeah,
spiritual, mental, all of the different bodies. Physical body is the last one. So it takes
yeah,
a very long time to go from there to here. It's like, how long does it take to create cancer and different things in the body? There's been
mm,
a lot going on emotionally for us
yeah,
way before
yeah,
that got into, or the body decided to create it.
yeah, absolutely.
And it's fascinating that the body is here. Well, first of all, it's on loan, right? I think of a doctor who's putting on scrubs and you just sort of step into the costume of the human body and we operate with it because that's how we are able to move around. And the body is such a gift to us, and we don't even realize the connection we have to it through our feelings and our emotions. I call that my GPS, my feelings and my emotions. Most people are living in their heads
Mm,
and trying to understand and figure out things. I have learned that that's counterproductive, that
mm.
just be in concert with your feelings and your emotions coming through your body. It's my GPS. If I listen to that and my intuition, I always know where to go and what to do.
But there are people who react emotionally very strongly about things that don't really happen. So
Yes,
that can be people who have, well, maybe character-based or trauma-based experiences that cause them to overreact or to be in a lot of conflict very quickly without having the necessity to really do something about it because nobody is really threatening them. For example, if someone has a difficult personality style. And how do you differentiate between the intuition to listen to your emotion and to your inner, inner truth, which is the same for them when they have a strong emotional reaction? They would also say, but I feel it. Is that the truth then? How do you differentiate that?
that's a good question. Um, well, I think most people are coming from their monkey mind, that they're coming from their imagining mind, as opposed to, and their reactive mind as opposed to their heart and intuition. I know that for me, the intuition always speaks to me lovingly, kindly, supportively.
Mm-hmm.
The other side is always negative,
Mm,
and if it's the victim part of me,
mm,
the little kid part of me that's gotten hurt or is remembering something or feeling that whatever circumstances I'm in right now remind me of what I had experienced before that was painful or hurtful. And there's this victimization feeling.
mm.
Anytime you have a negative feeling, it's not your intuition speaking. It's not your highest self speaking.
Oh, that's so wonderful that you make the connection between intuition and higher self. Because, well, sometimes I have the experience when people have emotional disorders, like they have a depression or anxiety, or maybe even a personality disorder, they mix that up, like their intuition with these negative feelings they have. And sometimes, probably, you've had that in your life as well, that a little voice inside you says, don't go that way, leave it that way, or do something else.
Right.
And how can you teach people to make a distinction between this loud and fear-based, stop doing that, it's dangerous for you, and this, it's like a soft voice that is telling you, well, maybe go another way. You can go that way, but might not turn out that well. How do you teach people to get into their intuition as their higher self or their inner voice instead of their fear-based or maybe even trauma-based experiences that can be very loud.
And very convincing. I what I normally say is put a hand where I call the high heart.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't matter which hand you use. And the other
Mm-hmm.
one goes on solar plexus,
Mm-hmm.
which is, above the belly button and below the
Mm-hmm.
bra line for women. Um, and learn to put your hands on your body and ask questions. Is this in my highest good? Do we ever think to ask a question like that? Is this what I'm thinking about? Is this in my highest good for me to do? Is this
Mm-hmm.
the next logical step for me? Is this safe for me? Whatever it is we're asking about. And see if we get a feeling or a knowing or a sense of all rightness to the answer.
Mm-hmm.
Because we have to start getting aware of the sensitivity that we feel in our bodies. I tell my clients, I ask them to ask themselves, are you hungry? Are you
Mm-hmm.
thirsty? Because
Mm-hmm.
you know where those live in your body, those
Yeah.
answers. What am I feeling emotionally? Start cueing yourself into what feelings are going on inside of you. Become aware of that nuanced feeling inside of you. People are so used to being in their heads, they're not used to
Mm-hmm.
being down in their bodies and feeling these quite sensitive feelings or quite soft feelings or, hard to maybe ascertain what's going on feelings. And it takes practice,
Mm-hmm.
but it's about getting in touch with, nurturing and loving yourself. I don't think anybody has been taught to do that. I certainly wasn't. I don't have friends who were taught to do that. I mean, yes, you're taught to be a good steward of yourself, but are you taught about nurturing and loving yourself? And that comes with the spiritual concepts, How do we get in touch with ourselves? What does it mean to be loving myself? And if I love myself, what does that lead to? And what does that give me? And that's more of the connection of where did we come from and, where are we going after we leave here? And, all of those sensitivities that aren't a part of our everyday thinking, but they are the thing that makes our lives worthwhile. We all want to have a life worth living, a well-loved life. And the way to do that is to become aware of what it is that you as an individual, as a human being, as a spiritual being in human form, what are we being asked to do? What are we asking of ourselves to do? And it's getting in there and doing the important work. Who am I? What do I need? How can I love and support myself in a better way? How can I listen to myself, my body, my connection to something bigger than me, to know how to navigate my world in the best way? We're not here to do this all alone.
You mean we have the guides that can teach us to do that if we start listening?
Yes, we have. If people could see the plethora of beings that are around them at all times, mentors, masters, angels, guides, deceased loved ones, there's a whole plethora of people at our disposal or beings at our disposal. And it's part of this real world that we live in. It's not just all on the other side. It's interactive here.
Yeah, but that is something that people maybe who like you have had special experiences can perceive quite clearly. But our five senses are not programmed to perceive that per default.
But
Why do you think that
we have six
is?
senses, not just five.
Yeah,
That's
that's true. That's true. But if you ask, like the most people walking around, do you perceive other beings around you than the ones that you can see with your eyes? They would say, no. So per default, we're not really built to have that experience. Why do you think that is?
Well, I think children have the experience. I think children see um, and have friendships or relationships with beings that aren't right here in human form. And I think that's part of the process, you know, in individuating as human beings. Um, we have a sense of where we came from. I remember asking my daughter, because kids know before the age of 3 or 4 much more than we realize. And she used to go to a place called Calcium.
Mm-hmm.
And she would shut her eyes and she'd be gone for a few seconds. And she'd come back and she'd tell me what was going on in Calcium. She could still connect to it.
That's great.
And it reminded me of a place in Greece where it was hillsides with white terraced buildings coming down the
Oh, yeah.
sides.
You
And
mean Santorini?
it sounds like Santorini, yes.
Yeah.
And it's funny that, you know, it was called Calcium, and calcium is in my world is a white
Yeah.
substance.
Oh,
No,
yes.
but she would come back and she would tell stories, and she was very clear, very
Uh-huh.
adamant about it.
Mm-mm.
Um, and it was part of her awareness. And I
Mm.
think we as adults kind of poo-poo with children and say, no, that's in your
Yes.
imagination. It's make believe. And
Yes.
I
Yeah.
remember it wasn't in my imagination. I remember seeing images and shadows and whatnot. And, you know,
Mm.
I could feel feelings of things that were okay and not okay in my childhood. And I think adults put that part of themselves away because
Mm.
somewhere along the line, somebody said, that's immature. That's not okay. You
Mm.
don't need to behave like that
Yeah.
or things like that.
Yeah.
And it made them doubt themselves, made kids doubt themselves. Because I think it is a truth that we are still connected, you know? I know that I have connected with people who have crossed over through the years. And it's as real to me as you are with me right now. And
You
why?
mean you could see and you can hear like a physical appearance?
Yes, I can.
Oh.
Not always. Sometimes it's just the sensation of them, it's
Mm-hmm.
the knowing of
Mm-hmm.
them. I can still communicate with them. I don't have to
Mm-hmm.
physically see them. And yes, I have and do see, you know, people.
Wow.
Yeah.
Tell me about how, especially since your near-death experience, and of course you can tell a little bit about that. How did your physical perception change, tuning to the frequencies you perceived in that experience? Meaning, like, how did your central perception change after waking up, after being in your body again?
Well, it took me many years to coalesce all of that information that I had experienced, all those feelings, and make sense of them. Because at the time that I had my near death experience, it was 1981. Nobody was talking about near death experience. Well, not
Mm,
nobody, but I mean, it was new. Raymond Moody's book, I think, had been out about 4 years, and we
mm,
didn't have internet. You know, we didn't
mm,
have the ability to get that information out and about. You know, it was a very kind of hush hush thing. The
mm.
doctors didn't talk about it. They didn't want to admit that they almost lost a patient. You know, it was a very weird time. Um, I kind of lost the essence of that question.
So the question was like, how did your perception and your
Oh,
senses change, especially the palpable and yeah, like the seeing, the hearing, the smelling, after you came back into your body?
well, the first time I realized that something had really happened to me, because when I came back into my body in the hospital room after flatlining in recovery, I I didn't know something had happened. I was still for me, I'm sensitive to anesthesia and that kind of stuff. So I was still, feeling all of that.
Mm.
But I realized that the woman in the bed next to me that shared the hospital room with me, she'd had the same surgery. She had a lot less done to her knee than I had to mine because I'd waited 10 years to have mine fixed. And she was in so much pain. And I wasn't in any pain because of my near-death experience. I wasn't in any pain. And the first outing I had with my sister, we went to a restaurant we'd gone to many times before. And we were standing in the lobby and we're waiting for a table. And all of a sudden, there's this like a wave of sound coming at me. And I'm hearing everybody's thoughts, feelings, fears, needs, wants. And
As a sound, as an actual sound, like
as
hearing
in
them?
sound, it just, yes. And I'm feeling all of their pain and suffering at the same time, all of their yearnings and longings and fears and wants. And it was like, I'm losing my mind. There's
Mm.
something happening. I'm
Mm.
losing my mind. I had no idea what had occurred.
Mm.
I just knew I had been changed forever. And at the time, I thought I was becoming, because this was my reference point, psychotic.
Mm. Mm.
Today, I would say schizophrenic because of all
Mm.
the voices I was hearing, all the
Mm. Mm.
dialogue that
Mm.
was going on. And it was this just huge cacophony of sound coming at me like a wave. And it was like, what do I do with that? I don't know what this is. What do I do with it? How do I handle this? And it scared me because
Mm.
I didn't have anybody I could talk to about it at that time. If I had told my doctor, he probably would have wanted to put me on heavy
Oh,
medication
yes. Oh,
or,
yes. They
or
still
a
would.
72-hour hold, you know?
Mm.
And yeah, I wouldn't have told the priest either because he would have said, you're a heretic. You
In
can't
that
be.
in that experience when you had maybe you want to talk a little bit about what kind of conversations or experience you had with beings on the other side when you were out of your body. Was there any kind of information about what was going to change when you come back into your body? Did they warn you?
You know, I don't think there ever is that kind of communication because when you're there with them, you have a sense of the awareness of everything. Every
Mm.
question, every thought, every anything you'd ever wanted to know, it wouldn't matter the subject, you were online to the information.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
So there were no questions about, and I didn't have the awareness that I was out of my body necessarily. I mean, I didn't have that distinction. I knew I was elsewhere. Did I even know I was dead? Did I even care?
Mm.
Not really.
Mm.
I was just loving where I was because it was so incredibly loving and supportive and non-judgmental. And I had always felt judged. I always
Mm.
felt anxious. I always felt like the consummate victim. And here I was feeling cherished, cherished. I'd never experienced cherished in my whole life. I had no concept of what that would feel like. I felt cherished and just loved what was happening and wanted more of it
Yeah.
until they, until they said, it's not your time, you must go back.
Mm.
And then it all started to change
But there
because
was
then,
never any warning like you would be different when you come back.
no, no.
Oh.
And there was no sense that I was different because everything felt so natural being there. This didn't feel natural.
Mm.
That felt natural. So there was no question in my mind about, well, what happens when this is over? That you didn't have those kinds of conversations,
Mm. Mm.
or even thoughts. It was like you were in the present. And the only
Mm.
thing that you had was the
The
present.
present, yeah.
You're in this moment right here,
Yeah.
right now.
Yeah.
And now we're in this moment. And now we're in this, that's all it was.
Mm.
And it was just, It was huge in its energy, and yet it was so loving and subtle and natural. And, I'm speaking to, there were 2 rows of monks that I ended up communicating with. And the one on the end came out and spoke to me, and they were in brown monks' robes with the hoods up, but they didn't have faces.
Mm.
Blackness until this one stood and is facing me. And now I'm seeing like energy floating
Mm-hmm.
where the face
Mm-hmm.
would be, like atoms or something moving. So it was lights, lights dancing
Mm-hmm.
and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And as I'm looking at him, and I say him, how did I know it was a him? But that's how it felt,
Mm-hmm.
very masculine and protective. Um, there was just this all rightness about he's speaking, but there's no face, there's no voice, but I'm feeling it and hearing it inside of myself. And as I'm responding, I'm doing the same thing with him, and
Mm.
it's feeling normal and natural. Now, how does that seem normal and natural when we're in human time? It doesn't. But there,
Mm.
it was what was normal and natural. It was what was so. We were just communicating. I was frustrated. I was telling him, you can't send me back. I finally came home. I've always wanted to be home, home within myself, home here in this feeling. Can't send me back. And he said, but you have a child. You must go back. It's not your time.
So you know
And as
that's an interesting twist in that story, because when you say everything was in the moment and in the moment in the moment, apparently this instant that was talking to you had a perception on there is a timeline going on Earth for you as Dianne Sherman. So there must have been a difference in consciousness, the consciousness you were getting into, which sounds a lot like you have when you're also having psychedelic experience, like being in that moment and having no sense of time or purpose. But apparently the one that was talking to you, which must have been another kind of consciousness, had a sense of there is a purpose, there is a progression, there is still something to do. How would you say is that different?
for me, experiencing that, or for me,
Well,
remember,
what do you think? It's a different level of consciousness.
oh, I think when you have a near-death experience, you are able to be in a certain level of consciousness. I don't think it's the same as when you are fully on the other side.
Okay, so you think you enter some kind of realm, but you're not connected with the whole system to the unity.
I don't think you can be until you finally have let go completely of your body.
Mm,
I don't think your consciousness is totally there. And the being that was speaking to me, the monk, was a part of the all,
mm,
and I wasn't. I was visiting. That's how it
mm,
felt. I was
mm,
visiting, and that's why I wanted to stay, because I wanted to be more in that, as
That
opposed
sounds
to
so good.
be less and come back and be human.
Mm,
There was
mm,
still the tether, even though when I saw myself, dead in the hospital bed in recovery, and them working on me, I had no connection to me in that
mm,
bed.
mm. To that
None.
personality, yeah. Yeah.
And I knew it was a form of me. And I remember standing at the bottom of that bed, looking up at that person who was me. And I remember standing and looking down at myself, and I could see myself in a hospital gown and bare feet. And yet I'm also there,
Mm,
and, we reconcile that the best we can. I had no sensitivity or feeling or awareness or responsibility for her.
Mm.
And she was a her. She wasn't me.
Yeah. Yeah.
Me was here
Mm.
going in the other direction. So I was me
That's
on the other side, but um, not fully, you
Did
know?
you have that sensation in that moment when you were on the other side that you are female? Or was there no sensation of being any kind of gender?
I never thought of that. No, there was no awareness of my sexuality or any of the things that are markers for us as human beings.
Mm.
There was no, although I knew he was male.
Uh-huh. It felt like a male energy, you say, because you didn't
Yes.
have any feature or any peculiar voice or something you could make out as a man.
No, it was just an awareness of
Mm.
his, he felt very protective. He felt
Mm.
very nurturing. He felt
Mm-hmm.
very in charge.
Mm-hmm.
You know, that those kind of qualities that I
Mm.
ascribe to a male. Was I
Male, but
aware?
not necessarily man. So you mean like a male energy?
Male energy, not
Mm.
man.
Yeah,
It was not a
yeah,
man, it was
yeah,
male. And I've always
yeah.
said male. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I was not aware of me being a woman. No, didn't matter. None of
Mm.
that mattered.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Nothing mattered except the connection, which was, I don't even know how to say it. When when you're standing with people who are just radiating unconditional love to you, how do you
Amazing.
describe that?
And that's something that I would love to dive a little deeper with you into, especially when we talk about emotion and the body. So when you say you felt loved and cherished, is that a feeling, an emotion? Because you said that you didn't feel anything, you didn't feel any pain, you didn't feel any body, any physical sensation, but emotions are very physical. You know, there cannot be fear without the heart pounding, without sweating, without some kind of mental connection to what could be dangerous. So you kind of need the body and also the brain to have an emotion. What is the difference in that state of non-physical love and being cherished and feeling at peace?
Well, I think in the physical realm, it's ego related. You know, the feelings that we have oftentimes are ego related, whereas in the other realm, there's no ego, there's no limitation, and there's no connotation of anything other than just presence.
Mm-hmm.
Your presence right here, right now. And what does that comprise? It comprises your feeling loved and being loved, and loving. There's a sense of lovingness, and there's such a sense of all rightness. And I don't, it's much more esoteric than things we describe in physical form.
Mm.
There was nothing other than heart energy. There was no head energy. It was all heart energy.
Do you think there is any kind of human experience you could compare that to?
I have not had one, so that I am aware of. No.
Mm.
Can you do it with microdosing or ayahuasca? I've not had those, so
Mm-hmm.
I have not. I don't have that to compare it to, but I think anytime you are elevated beyond your limited consciousness, you're closer and closer to God, whether it's in our prayers or in our, dreams or our meditations. I mean, there are many times when I have meditated and been able to tap back into that feeling. And that was one of the things that I said to the universe, if I have to be here, because I did not want to be here, I have to be able to touch back into that overwhelming sensation of love. Even if it's just a touchstone, I have to be able to do that. And I have. And it has sustained me, because coming back, having been there, is devastating.
It felt like it was more of a challenge than of a gift.
Being back in my
Yeah.
body. Oh,
Yeah.
God, yes. First of all, it's like coming back into a very tight wetsuit,
Okay.
a rubber
Okay.
suit.
Yeah.
It's just like, oh my God, because you are so big when you're out. You just feel so expanded on levels I can't even describe. I don't have words for it, but you're limitless. You're just limitless. And that's a divine feeling in itself. It's yummy. And coming back into this little person's body, somebody once said to me, the light body is like 15 feet high. And to get all of that attached to this is no small feat.
Yeah.
And plus, when you go from that experience where you have no cares, no worries, no any, thought I had everything turned off. And you're feeling now all of your pain and suffering and bad feelings and aches and pains and worries and traumas. That's all now coming back to you. It's horrific. You have to make peace with being in that again.
And how did you make peace with that? And especially, how did you make that progression of realizing that working with that pain, emotional, physical pain, is actually the true journey?
I don't think I knew it was the true journey for many, many, many years. I've had people say to me, "Oh, you're so lucky you had a near-death experience. You got to like cheat and go forward."
Mm,
And I say to them, don't wish for this. It's not
mm,
for the faint of heart. It's not an easy experience.
mm,
And to reconcile in your mind without losing your mind that you've died and that you've had this amazing experience and you felt these amazing feelings, and now you're back being yourself again with all of the aches and pains and whatnots. It's not easy, and
mm.
it doesn't wipe the slate clean. I still had to do the work psychologically on myself that I needed to do before I had my near-death experience.
Mm.
I just had the awareness that I am loved unconditionally, and I will take that to the bank.
It's like the baseline that you can relax on, because no matter what happens, no matter how much I screwed up or how much I'm not learning my lessons, I am still
Yeah.
loved. Yeah.
And that there's no judgment on us. We're never going to get it all done. We're never going to get it all right. And nobody wants us to or needs us to.
Mm. I
It's
think
not what
that's
it's
really
about.
hard for humans to get, because humans love to-do lists and they love to have like a, a day's work done, They want to see what they've done, they want to see the result, they want to be productive. And it's so hard for the rational mind to say, you know what? It doesn't even matter how many lifetimes you take or if you do it at all in the end, it's still going to be great.
Well, I think the most important part of all of it for me was knowing that I wasn't judged.
Hmm.
Because in the church I was raised in, the Catholic Church, I felt very judged and coming up short in a lot of ways. And, you know, not that I was afraid of going to hell. I didn't really buy into that concept, but I I had a lot of judgment on myself, and I came from a family that was very judgmental. And so when I realized that God doesn't judge me,
Mm.
all God wants to do is love me, it was okay. Well, if God doesn't judge me, then why the hell am I judging myself? And why am I not loving myself?
Mhm.
And how do I learn to love myself? That was
And
the lesson.
but then it's you coming back into being not yourself, but yourself in the body and in the life of Dianne. And that's maybe more difficult to be still a true and eternal self, but attached to a personality, to a story, to a body, to actions, and to realize that there is still this part of us that is not touched by all of that. That's a really big challenge. And many, many people who I'm working with have big issues understanding that this part even exists and that
Oh, I understand that. Yeah. It's it's hard to understand that, first of all, we're living in a loving universe. And I think
Mhm.
that's the bottom line. We have to either figure that one out, or it's really tough to go forward. Do we live in a loving
Yeah,
universe? Yes or
yeah,
no?
yeah,
Okay. So I believe we do. Is this a loving or punitive God?
yeah.
I thought he was punitive, but now I know he's not, or
Mm.
it is
Yeah,
not.
yeah.
Source, universe, whatever it is not punitive.
Mm.
It's all loving,
Mm.
and only wants the best for us. We weren't put here to suffer. I
Mm.
didn't know that. I thought we were. I thought it was part of the deal. It's not. It's what we create for ourselves, because we have, first of all, we're vibratory beings. We have a frequency, and our frequency determines, what we're vibrating at determines,
Mm.
as it goes out,
Mm.
what is going to match it
Yeah,
by
yeah,
people's actions and interactions with us,
yes.
and how they receive us. And our job is to always be in the most grounded, positive place within
Mm.
ourselves, in order
Mm.
to not respond to anything negative that comes at us.
Mm.
And also to know that all is well, no matter what it looks like. I
Mm.
don't care what it looks like. I know on the back story, all is well. It's like
Also,
the crew
yeah,
behind the production of making,
it's fine.
it's all fine. They've got it handled, you know?
Yeah,
All we
yeah.
have to do is just, get out of our way, and be kind and gentle with us, have a sense of humor about all of this, not take it so seriously,
Mm.
and just keep moving forward.
But things happen. People have difficult, challenging situations and physical ailments. And if you say we weren't put here to suffer, but we were here to learn that we are vibratory beings, isn't then suffering still a way to show us what is not working or how we can
Sure.
actually change? Because I think sometimes people mistake experiencing bad things or painful things as a punishment or as a consequence out of actions that somebody else did, or maybe a
Or
mistake
choices
that
that we made.
choice that we make. But as a matter of fact, it's always a mirror showing us our frequency, meaning are we in fear or are we trusting? Are we sending out love in our thoughts and in our actions and in our words? Or are we sending out separation and maybe even conflict or hatred? And I think that's a very challenging task in this life as a human being to learn, because we weren't given that lesson when we grew up. Nobody taught us that we
We
are
didn't come with
vibratory beings.
instructions, right?
No, nobody gave us these instructions. And I think that also humanity has had a long journey of covering up the true potential of changing your life by yourself. I don't know if there is any kind of them wanting to cover that up, because I'm not so sure about that. Maybe it was also like a where you say, in yogic tradition, we have the yugas, and the Kali Yuga was the dark. age that we're kind of coming out of, which was necessary for us to forget all that and to kind of tap in the dark until we realize our true potential and true inner power, that actually karma is nothing but vibratory frequency.
Yes, that's true. I've always thought to myself, the reason that babies cry when they're born is because they realize, oh my God, I have signed up to do this again. How did I get
Yeah.
here again? Why did I
Why?
say yes? You know, and we have a choice. It's not,
Mm,
we're not forced to be here,
mm,
and
mm.
that thing about, how painful and how awful it is, and we're victims, and why is God doing these things to us? And why doesn't
Yeah.
God do a better job of making it better for us?
Mm,
And I keep reminding them that, first of all, we're in a free will state.
mm, mm,
That's one of the things we're given, is to be in a free will state, which means
mm.
we are creating for ourselves what we are
Yeah.
experiencing.
Yeah.
And, you know, God is on the sidelines, brokenhearted when we're brokenhearted. Because I think the whole experience of us being here is so that we could be an extension of the God force, so that God could experience everything,
Itself. Yeah. Yeah.
experiencing God's self through us in
Yeah.
all of our
Yeah.
experiences.
Mm,
And there is nothing that God can do to offset what we have set into motion,
mm,
because he's given us the power to self-determine. So we need to stop, making God wrong and blaming God, and start taking accountability for
mm,
what we're creating for
mm,
ourselves. You and I could choose in any moment to decide something wasn't feeling good, or something wasn't okay, or we were upset about something. Or we could take a step back and go, wait a minute, what's
mm,
really happening with those
mm,
feelings coming up
mm,
inside?
mm,
Um, did something inside of me get triggered that I wasn't aware was there and needing my attention? And be aware of our feelings and emotions, and be cognizant of, we have a choice to, how do we handle them now? What steps are we going to take right now?
yeah.
Am I going to do some breathing? Am I going to just take a minute here to just kind of get myself grounded and okay because something
Oh, yeah.
I wasn't expecting to feel came up? Or are we just going to knee jerk into something and respond without thinking and without responsibility for the
Mm,
response? And the good news is we have the power to change our lives in any moment we want to. And, I go to sleep at night and I kind of go through my day and I'm in gratitude, which is a big part of my life, gratitude. I'm in gratitude for the experiences that I have and the people I got to interact with and the moments I got to feel, the feelings that I felt. And, and I'll ask for more of that. And I'll ask to be more aware of where I didn't do my best job, where
mm,
I didn't become the best person I could be for me, as
mm,
well as showing up for people I care about. We have the power to change our lives.
mm,
So let's stop blaming God and start taking some
mm,
actions to
mm.
understand also that we are human and we're going to make mistakes and we're going to do it wrong
Oh, yeah.
sometimes. And the point is, nobody cares. Stop beating, stop beating yourself up. If God doesn't care if we screw up, we need to not care. We need to understand that we're just trying it on. It's like buying a
Mm,
hat.
mm.
Do I like the shape? Does it make me look
Yeah.
pretty? Is the color
Yeah.
right? We try on these different
Mm.
things and it's okay. It's okay. It's all okay. There's
And
no right or
even
wrong.
I like that with the trying on the hat, because isn't even karma like you try it on from different angles until you get it right, until you get what you feel fits or suits you best?
Well, it's until you get the awareness of, oh, this is what it's about.
Yeah. 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 Yeah.
We become awake and aware when we become awake and aware. There's no right or wrong to it, and there's no timeline on it, and there's no, you should have done it sooner. I
Mm.
got there when I got there. I
Oh,
didn't
that's
have
so
the
that's
awarenesses.
really interesting because everybody is striving or struggling to be more aware, to be more in their own spiritual power. And I feel like not every lifetime is supposed to be for that. Some lifetimes may be supposed to be to learn to have a good body, to have a healthy body, or to have healthy finances, or to have stable relationships. And this spiritual growth may not even be necessary for everybody on this earth. Nevertheless, I think knowing about it makes a big difference when you decide what life you want to choose. Because if you know, okay, there is a spiritual path and there is also a more materialistic path, you can choose. You can choose what way you want to dive into in this lifetime.
And
But
who
by
says
not
they're mutually exclusive?
the what?
Who says they're mutually exclusive?
Definitely not. But some people just don't feel touched by spiritual issues, which is fine. Not everybody has to be interested in that. But if they don't even know about it, and I feel like it's our responsibility to teach children and I mean humanity about that we are both body and soul. And body meaning also having emotions and having a brain which is trying to figure out and make sense of all the life and experiences we have here, which is more or less the psyche, making sense of your experiences and your emotions. But if people just don't even know about that, and their only way of realizing that there is a God or a soul is religion, then how are they empowered to really make a decision which path they want to choose?
They might not in this lifetime, and that's okay. I think each lifetime brings us closer to the awareness of it's all heart, it's all
Mm,
love. And the
mm.
closer we can align with love and loving and being loving and receiving love, feeling loved by others and yourself, is living spirituality. So that's why I say it doesn't have to be mutually exclusive. It doesn't have to be your focus. If your focus is to be in alignment with yourself, to be in alignment with the world, and to be an asset to the world in as many ways as you can, that's walking your spiritual talk. It may not be formal training, but
Mm.
the outcome is the same. It's having the desire and the awareness to be at one with all that is.
If you
Because
had, yeah, sorry,
if
I'm
we
sorry.
if after we die, we go back to the original source of the creation. So if we have the thought that everything we say and do affects everybody else in the world like ripples in the water,
Mm,
we will take more care with what
of
we
course.
say and do.
Mm, yeah.
So it's
If
about wanting to love people and life and ourselves.
if you were to teach people how to step into that emotional state of unconditional love. I mean, it's a challenging task. I know that because love here on earth is always or many times associated with desire, often
Conditional.
also with yeah, it's conditional. And even if you are a mom or a dad, you can feel a tremendous amount of love for your child, but I dare say it's still conditional because you're wired like that. Our biology is wired to protect that child. And I was wondering, and maybe that is a great thing we can end this wonderful conversation with, and to give people what would be a really great practice to step into what God, whatever that is, feels for us. How can we foster that in our connection with people, with plants, and with animals? so that it's not a love that we know, but the love that God has for us. Do you
Oh,
think there is
lovely.
something we can practice?
That's a lovely thought. Let's see. Well, how do we get people to connect with their own hearts? Because there is the love of God in all of us because we
Hmm.
are created by God. So there is that emanating heartbeat of love that we all carry, but we have to get in touch with ourselves on that level. So if you see something that like a gorgeous flower or a gorgeous sunset, or for me, it's I love rainbows. I always feel like they're a gift just for me. Whatever it is that we're experiencing, hearing the laughter of a child, seeing kids interact and play, whatever that moment is that feels so sweet,
Hmm.
just stop and just embrace that moment into your heart, wherever you feel your heart is in your
Hmm.
anatomy, right?
Hmm. Hmm.
Just just scoop that feeling up and just hold it dearly within yourself.
Hmm.
And every time you have one of those, just add it to that place, that feeling. It gets you in awareness of the moment that's happening, that's beautiful, that's making you feel something special. And you're bringing it back to yourself and you're just building upon it. Because I think that's the easiest way to feel God
Hmm.
or God's love, is just to know that this was created for us to play in, this amazing place called Earth. It's a place for us to be curious about and try on different experiences and see everything about ourselves. There's no limitation to us here except the ones we put on ourselves. And so go back, always referencing to your heart. And if you can muster a sense of gratitude for that moment, gratitude elevates all feelings in us and connects us up to source. Anytime we're sad or overwhelmed or even terrified, if we can find something to remember to be grateful for, that moment of gratitude elevates us higher than those lower based emotions and immediately makes us feel better because our vibration's higher. So choose.
Do you think this feeling that you are talking about, I think everybody can relate to that, to have that sweet feeling and to really take it in.
Lean
But,
into it. Yeah.
but that's easy when you have a sweet moment. But what if you, for example, are interacting with somebody who's challenging you? How can you still tap into this other kind of relationship that still feels love in spite of all the human drama without stepping into a victim mentality or without being apologizing for something or without even interacting on a human level but just feeling that love although there might be conflict? How is that possible? Do you think it is possible?
I do. I think, and it takes practice. It takes practice for us not to knee jerk with somebody
Mm.
who's challenging us, but to stand back, do a little breathing, and just say, I'm here to listen to what this person's needing to say to me.
Mm-hmm.
They're not attacking me. They're sharing something. They're saying something to me. How do I want to handle what I'm perceiving and how I respond to that? Maybe they're hurting. Maybe something has
Mm.
happened in their day that has upset them or um, undermined their strength within themselves. Maybe they're anxious about something. Maybe they're really worried, and they're just needing a way to feel better. And so they're having this dialogue with me, and maybe they're being confrontational, and maybe they're just needing me to stay grounded for them.
Mm.
Can I care enough about them and myself to stay grounded and say, we're okay here. You can say what you
Mm.
need to say. You know,
Mm.
maybe see that their inner little child is
Mm.
hurting and angry and acting out. And you just stay being loving within yourself
Mm-hmm.
and listen to what it is they're needing to espouse, whatever that is.
Mm. Oh, that's
And
such a wonderful notion to put them into the perspective of the loving parent, not as I am higher than you are, but there is something in you suffering. And like you would treat a child that is acting out, you would maybe ask, "What's going on, honey?"
right.
Not to say it out loud, but to have that feeling of,
And you
"Sweetie,
might
what's going on?"
you might want to say, what's going on? I can see you're having a
Yeah,
real challenge here.
yes,
How can I support you?
yeah,
How can
yeah,
I help?
yeah, yeah. That's
Because
wonderful. Thank you.
it's not always about us, you know?
Mm,
People need to connect. That's the one thing that I know for sure as a human being. We need connection. On the
oh,
other side,
yes.
you don't because you are connected
You
and
are
you're totally
connected. Yeah,
aware of it. But
yeah, yeah.
here we
Yes,
feel
yes.
isolated
Yeah,
from ourselves and each other.
yeah,
So sometimes we don't know how to connect appropriately. We're just full of an emotion and we
yeah,
just need to connect with somebody and get some help, you know,
yeah,
even if we're
yeah,
not going to talk
absolutely.
about it,
Absolutely.
we just need to get rid of some of these emotions. And so
Mm,
we come at each other, and our job is to stay grounded and adult and just hold
mm,
space
mm,
for that person to write
mm,
themselves. We don't need to have to figure it out for them. We're just holding space for them to feel safe.
mm. And it doesn't even mean it's our space. It just means to be not interacting on that level of fear and hate and chaos, but to stay as much in your own heart center that you can build a heart-centered space for them without being at your own resource on a physical, emotional, mental level.
Right. We don't
Mm,
have to take responsibility for their
yeah,
discomfort,
yeah.
but we don't want to add to it either because
Mm,
clearly they're having a challenge. If they weren't
very,
having a
very,
challenge, they
yeah,
wouldn't be coming the way they're coming.
yeah, yeah.
But our normal response is to knee jerk and
Mm,
get defensive
mm,
and,
mm,
reactive.
yeah,
And
yeah,
that just escalates everything and it doesn't
yeah,
solve anything. So
absolutely.
if we
Mm,
can be of service, why not be of service?
mm. And it would actually help ourselves too, because we are not getting caught up in the drama if we just stay in focus on our heart center energy balance instead of giving energy into fear and hatred and conflict and drama. So it was really nice for me to hear how you make the inner child more of a perspective that God has for us, and that we can see
Yeah.
ourselves and also other people as a child that is loved, not as something that is smaller or less important or less wise, but just the feeling of loving a child is so tangible for so many people on earth that we can make this connection of how God may feel towards us and how unconditional love may feel inside of us. Thank you.
I love that.
And I think it was really great to see how much love and heart energy you bring into your work. And maybe you can tell me a little bit, or you can tell the audience a little bit of about your work. What do you do? How can people reach out to you? And how do you work people through their journey right to their spiritual center and heart center?
Well, they can reach me at my website, which is guidingyourspirit.com. And, you know, I, the thing I came back with from my near death experience that was really profound for me is because I grew up being afraid so much of my life. And I didn't want people to be afraid of dying
Mm-hmm.
because I realized, for me, I have no fear of death whatsoever. And I've been waiting a long time to go home. 44 years I've been waiting to go home. And now that I'm, almost 79, I'm closer to it than ever. And I'm very pleased and very thrilled because I know how yummy it is on the other side. And I, I'm okay being here until then, but I know it's so much more than here.
Mm,
It's a whole other experience that we get to have there. It's the next level of growth. It's not
mm,
the end of anything. So Yeah.
So you basically teach people to not be afraid.
Well, that's where I started my work, was to have people not be afraid, but also not to be afraid in life.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's teaching people that they have perceptions that have gotten created within themselves through their childhood experiences, that those perceptions they're holding about themselves is getting in their way. It's blocking them. So I help them understand where that came from and reframe that, have a different
Mm-hmm.
perspective. That wasn't what your parents were trying to say about you. You are lovable. You are worthwhile. You are amazing. But so many of us grew up feeling the opposite of that.
Mm-hmm.
And once you can understand that that was just a childhood perception, that I now understand myself on a different level, I can create a different life for myself. I don't have to be in pain and suffering. And that's what I strive to help people do, is create a life they love living. We're supposed to have joy here. It's not supposed to be painful, but it is. And we
Yeah.
make it so, and we
Mm.
continue to do that. And I try to help people stop that process and find another way. Because when you
Wonderful.
get in alignment with yourself, life flows differently. It's
Mm.
so much more rewarding, and it's
Yeah.
so much
Yeah.
more peaceful, and it's so much more fun.
Mm.
And I want more fun people to play with.
And I think you're doing an amazing job. Really, I feel always like it's a hug when I'm talking to you. And even if we're so many spaces apart, and maybe that's important to say as well, you work internationally,
I do.
in English, but you work online, you work on Zoom. It's very easy to get an online appointment with you. You don't have to go through long processes. It's very approachable, and I always feel like you are very authentic, even though you have this little twist of connecting to spirit, which is, of course, very special. And maybe you can say two more things about that. Like, you do a little trick when you do a reading, you do something with your hands. Can you explain what that is when you ask a question about spirit?
I'm a dowser. And years ago, I used to use wands for dowsing. Now I use
Uh-huh.
my hands to determine answers.
Uh-huh.
And the body doesn't lie. That's
Oh,
why we
yes.
muscle testing and
Yeah.
different things, because the body doesn't lie.
Yes.
This
Yes.
will lie all day long. So
Mhm.
a lot of the work that I do, even though I have my own information and feeling, I will verify, and I go directly to the creator of all that is and ask questions on my
Mhm.
client's behalf, because it's important for me to verify that I am getting the right thing for them.
Mhm.
So, and I also do vibrational clearings
Mhm.
through breath, codes and breath, to help remove, old traumas and whatnot that are still hanging on, to give people more space within
Mhm.
themselves to create. If you
Mhm.
don't feel burdened by all the old pain and suffering and stuff that you're carrying, it's so much easier to try on new things, to play in a different way, to have a more elevated perception of your life.
It's like a spiritual antidepressant. You just clear the
Love
space and
that.
then
Spiritual antidepressant. I love that. Yes. But as I tell people, it's like peeling an onion. I can
yeah,
only clear what the person is able to let go of in that
yeah,
moment in time.
yeah.
So
Okay. So
I
you
can't I
work,
can't
you
change their whole life in, 60 minutes
no,
necessarily. I
of
can
course,
get them
of
going
course
in the
not.
right direction, but I need a little bit of time. Yeah.
So to sum it up, you work with your heart, you work with your body, you work with spiritual insights. I suppose you hear or you see
I
or you
do.
have. Mm-hmm.
I
Okay.
hear,
Mm-hmm.
but it's a knowing of
Mm-hmm.
information. And when I'm working online with my clients, I used to channel physically, um, but now
What
I'm
does
a
that mean? What does that mean physically?
where you allow an energy to come
Mm-hmm.
into your body and speak through
Okay.
you with their
Mm-hmm.
wisdom. I don't
Mm-hmm.
do that anymore. Now I
Okay.
connect to my group,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm online with them when I'm
Mm-hmm.
online with my clients.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So I have the ability to call in whatever information is necessary.
Mm. And I have to say that this is a very special way of working, and it always helps a lot, and it gives a lot of clarity. And again, it feels like a hug.
Oh, I'm so
And
glad.
I love working with you, and I love this conversation. Thank you
Me
so much for
too.
making it happen.
I love being here with you and the beautiful energy and heart center that you have created.
Thank you. And I hope that this show is going to be a place where people can find the connection between the body and the spiritual side, the science and the intuition, because I feel like the world is torn apart between either this or that, or you have to prove it, or you either feel it or you prove it. And I think people like you who have had so many clear experiences in life where they could actually identify I was somewhere else. It wasn't a dream. It wasn't an imagination. I was physically somewhere else. I was even dead. And I came back and something changed in my perception, not just in my mind, not just in my feelings. Something physically changed in me. And I think that's so precious because people like you are the living example of that we are more than just a body walking this earth and vanishing when we leave the body. And so many people would live their life differently, being aware of how great they actually are.
And that's the thing, is letting people know how precious they are. Because the most important gift I came back with is the ability to see people beyond the facade.
Mm,
And I get to interact with their preciousness, and I want them to feel what I see and experience with them, you know?
yeah,
We're all
yeah.
precious. No matter where we've been or what we've done, we're all
Mm,
precious. And it's
mm,
time to own that.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you. Perfect sentence to let everybody go into this heart-centered space and to maybe reach out to you. I would only recommend it. I hope to hear from you soon because I love you.
I love you too.
Thank you
Blessing.
so much.
Thank you.
If you feel inspired by this conversation, please remember to subscribe this channel. Also comment, like, and share this episode so we can get it out into the world. Thank you.